Welcome to my guest today, Tony Johnson with Timeless Construction. He is the CEO. Tony, how are you doing today?
Fantastic, Jonathan. How about yourself?
I am doing really well. Thank you so much for asking. Thank you for joining me. Really looking forward to this conversation. And I'm really anxious to hear about everything that's going on in the development world. I know it's crazy. I know there's still development happening, but I know it's hard. So can't wait to get your insight. Why don't we start out with you telling us just about your background and what your work in real estate looks like today?
Sure. Well, my background is in construction, so I've been doing commercial construction since 2008. I got into construction from selling building materials prior to and during the crash, and was watching all these builders make a bunch of money, and was, having builders call and order materials from me, and a lot of them seemed to lack some of the knowledge, and it made it seem like, man, this is a great opportunity. And these guys had all the money in my area. So I was like, wow, this what a great industry to try and be in. So right as I got my contractor's license, got my company formed, got going, the market completely crashed into nothing. So I started out going to bid opportunities, and there would be nobody there. And then within 6 months after getting going, I would go to bid opportunities, and you couldn't even get in the parking lot because everyone was going to try and bid and nobody had any more work. And then everyone started to fall out and go out of business all around me. Um, and me just getting going, I didn't have all the exposure at that point. So I it was a perfect opportunity actually to start. And so initially I got into doing work at school systems. So I did a lot of work at the university in my area, which is the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, and Cape Fear Community College. And then we did some of the local school systems. So that's how I got in to the commercial world right off the bat. We also did some HUD housing projects through the city. And so, with the private sector going down the tubes in that time frame, it was the perfect in. All the public markets where the school systems, everyone, they still had funds coming from the government. And so there were still quite a few opportunities, but not a lot of competition. So we got in doing smaller jobs, and got a great understanding and built up a great contractor base during that time frame. And then as the market slowly turned, we slowly started to and pivoted to the private sector as the commercial leasing started going again, and I got into upfits, and then moved from there to larger commercial renovations, and then into development and new builds, and all of it where we are now.
I want to go back to when you were starting. It seems like, to me anyway, I've never developed anything, but it seems like there would be a huge learning curve on those first couple deals. And the way your story goes of starting during the Great Recession and getting your feet wet on kind of in the municipal world with community colleges and schools, that makes a lot of sense because even if the private sector is in the toilet, the public sector and schools, they still want to be building and growing. We still need schools even in a recession. And so was getting into that line of work, was that strategic, or did working for the building for the community college and schools, did that sort of fall in your lap? How did that come about?
Yeah, I wish I could say this was strategic and I planned all this out, but I actually did not plan all this out. It was not strategic. It was, you know, I, I didn't, obviously when you're starting out, it's very difficult. And I, didn't know where and how to generate jobs or how to market myself, or anything such as that. So, we started just kind of looking around. So I had a guy come on with me and kind of help out working for me. And so we were kind of going through, well, where can we get some leads? How can I keep you busy so you stay kind of around here helping me out? And so we started looking. And so that's how I say we found HUD housing. So we just looked on the internet, and so where were there some public bids? So there was a public bid for HUD housing. So we went and bid on some, doing some house renovations where the government would pay for the renovation of the home for somebody that was living in dire conditions. And they were normally in like 100-year-old homes. So they're historic with lead paint. You have all these things that make it very unappealing. And then I got into the school opportunity. It was very small. So the first job I did was a $600 job where they were going to demo a building and they had to clear out the building and they couldn't get anybody to do it. Nobody wanted to do it. So me and the guy that I had that was going to help me out, we actually cleaned the whole building and got, it took us like 2 days for the $600, but I was so excited to get something done. Then, I did a great job for them. So they called me back for, to cut out a block opening of a building to connect one of the school buildings. They wanted to open up the room to the hallway. So it was a block wall and it was a structural wall. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how are we going to handle this? So, but so they actually helped and put me in contact with a good guy that saw cuts the block and tooths it in and helped me do all that and put in the lintel. So we got that. And then, slowly but surely we did that good and, worked off hours to do that and impressed them. And so then it was a $50,000 job. Then it was repainting all the dormitories when they were transferring students. And then it was repainting the outside of buildings. Then it was building a restaurant for the school, outdoing a parking lot for the school. Then it was, clearing and building a little parking lot expansion with check-in and just went on and snowballed from that. And then we got in, once we built up the reputation for that school system, then we were able to get accepted by other school systems and then got into bidding with them and redoing kitchens and adding on to portions of schools and on and kind of snowballed from there to going to other schools. And then that was the college system. Then we went to the public school system. Then we tried to get to private school systems and work all the different angles, and leverage what we had done to the next thing to keep growing and growing and growing and build our reputation, and kind of go from there.
I love that idea of your first job of essentially working for free. You worked for 2 days cleaning out this gross house for $600,
Yeah.
and it led to tons of other work. I'm trying to formulate my question, but I love the idea of starting with something small, and maybe it doesn't pay well, or maybe it doesn't pay anything, but you get experience, you build your reputation, you build contacts in your network, and it leads to this, this great big business, this development company that you've built today. So I know you wouldn't today take on a $600 job, but in retrospect, do you think taking on that first job where you were working for basically free, do you see that as a valuable first experience?
I do. And I'll tell you, everything that I do that's new. So whenever I get into something new, everyone always asks when I look at a job, even though I've been doing this now for 16 years, every time a job comes to me and I haven't done that specific type, a lot of times the client will ask, have you done this before? How much experience do you have in this? So I just, and then you have to explain, well, yes, this is a little bit different, but I've done the whole thing. But whenever you're getting into a new avenue, a lot of times, or even a new market, then a lot of times you have to take little to no profit to get your foot in the door. But then as long as you get that one first job, that one first opportunity, then you use that opportunity and start leveraging it immediately right when you get started. So I will take, even today, I'll take job opportunities that don't pay very well, as long as I see a path to be able to leverage it to future work where I will make money. Now I'll try, and at this point I'll sprinkle in other jobs, make sure I have other things going that I am making money, but I am constantly looking to always expand knowledge, expand opportunity, and get into an uncomfortable situation. But, even if I lose some money, it's okay to me, to be quite honest, as long as I get the experience, because I will for sure leverage that experience and make sure I perform and do an amazing job and can count on that client referring me. And to me, it doesn't make a difference the first of anything. As long as I can get to do it, then I know in the long run, because everything I look at as a long game, in the long run, I'll be able to make money. Same thing with real estate. When I'm up and still trying, because I've created my investment company in the last year and up and coming and trying, I'm not looking for a home run deal for myself. I just want a good deal that I can build a good reputation, do a great job, put in good tenants, make sure they're happy and they have a quality, unit that they're in, and I've given them, fair service whenever they have problems, and make sure that they're happy so I can leverage them for future and build the reputation. All to me, everything is all reputation.
That idea is so powerful to me. The idea of starting small and getting in the door and learning something, rather than trying to hit a home run on your first deal. There are lots of people in the real estate world who say, go bigger, faster. Don't start with single family or small stuff. Start with big stuff. And I have a hard time relating to that, because in those small deals, you learn really important lessons. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think, looking back to 15 years ago, do you think you could have gone big and gone after big jobs right away?
Well, I mean, I think that you can, and I think that I would happen to agree with you. I think that you can, and I think that, probably you can be successful and you can skip a lot of the steps of doing the small stuff. But typically, when you're doing something really big, you need other people's money, you need investors. So when you're doing something smaller, you can do it all on your own. So I would rather learn on my own dime. And then when I'm ready to take on those investors, I've got a track record and I'm confident, and I can say to them, hey, I've done this on my own dime. I'll invest in this and I'm taking your money, but I'm for sure going to make money and I have a track record of making money. Otherwise, you start on the big deal. Yeah, typically you're going to be taking on investor money. Maybe you put in some capital, but you can tell people I've leveraged, I've got this other person that's involved, they've got experience, you know, blah, blah, blah. But the reality is you don't know. And exactly what you say, things are going to come up you're not aware of. And if you're not prepared and you haven't gone through some of these struggles and understand how to handle certain situations, you could really put yourself in a bad situation and then ruin your reputation for life just on one bad deal starting out. So I'd much rather kind of take it slow, come prepared, and taking it slow. I mean, by the time you get to your third deal, you're ready to go big. So it's not like you're taking it slow for 5, 10 years. You just take it slow, get one or two deals under your belt, and grow. So maybe you do a $500,000 or a $2 million deal for your first deal, which is kind of a good, running average for somebody to start on a deal. And then, after 3 or 4 in that roundabout, maybe that's 2 years down the road, you're ready to go to an $8 or $10 million deal, or maybe a $20 million deal. And it's still, that's not that long of a wait. It's just a long game. I mean, we're in real estate for the long game. This isn't like a, get in, get out in 2 or 3 years. So, you want to build up a good reputation, and then who knows where you can go.
Such great wisdom. Tony, I want to talk about what development looks like today. So, in your business, the deals that you're doing, the construction that you're doing, can you give me a 30,000-foot view of what kind of stuff you're working on and what kind of the state of development today? Interest rates have gone crazy. The price of materials has increased. The price of land has increased. It's got to be challenging to do development deals right now. So, can you give me kind of a 30,000-foot overview of what your world looks like today and some of the challenges that you're facing?
Right, absolutely. Yeah, so what we primarily are doing is infill development, which means that it's all developed around us, and we're not bringing the utilities to the sites. So the utilities are right around us, and so it's just taking that pad and making it pad ready, and then building the building. So which makes it a little bit quicker and easier. So it turns maybe a 2 year process into a 1 year process. But the way it looks right now is land is, yes, overpriced right now. And again, this is, locally market by market. My market in my area specific is still extremely hot. We're getting more leads than we know what to do with still. So it's still a very active and hot market where we're located. But material prices, yes, are still up, and some are still going up. I know we just got a price increase coming for steel in 2 weeks. So that just came out. We're not seeing a lot of dip in pricing. It's been leveling off, but still extremely elevated. So anyone that comes to me, I know I met with a client today about a development of two flex buildings, and it's just an infill development. And typically, I'll ask a client, what are you budgeting for this? What's your ballpark on this? What would you think this is going to cost? And they'll say, well, this client in particular said, well, we're thinking we could do the site work and all the utility work and the tie-ins and the buildings for around, 600,000. And I'm like, well, okay, the site work alone is going to be about 550,000. Then we're going to have impact fees, Then we have to build all the buildings, right, and do all the finishes on the inside. So typically, a client's going to be at about a half or a third of what it's actually going to cost. And so when I'm looking at stuff and running numbers right now, numbers don't make a lot of sense for me as an investor. The land prices are high. The building material prices are high. Site work is extremely elevated in my area, and a lot of the civil contractors are 6-12 months out. So to do development right now is extremely risky and difficult, in my opinion, which is more what I want to be doing is full-on development. And so in a pending recessionary environment with everything at peak levels and a lot of unknowns in the financial markets as I look on a daily basis, it makes it challenging to know really what direction to go. That's my biggest challenge. So it's hard to see a great outcome in the next 2 years if you start developing something right now.
When you're having those conversations with a potential client, and they're way off the mark. I've been there myself when I've been thinking about, what would it cost? I get an idea, and what would it cost to build something? Is there a rule of thumb? Is there like a price per foot that you can do some quick and dirty napkin math on? Or how are you guiding potential clients when you get that phone call and someone says, yeah, I'd like to build this flex space. What's it going to cost to build, 6,000 square feet of flex space? How do you guide clients?
Sure. So, I mean, there's a ton of questions that I ask. So I'll have clients call me and be like, I want to take this lot and build this. How much is that going to cost? Give me a rough budget. And that's always, that's very difficult. I can't do that. I could do that, but it's not going to do them any good. It's just like calling somebody and saying, I'd like to buy a boat. How much is a boat? Or I want to buy a car. Well, how much is the car going to cost me? So it's difficult. So like with this client, they sent me a layout design from a civil guy. It didn't work for what they wanted. So then I had to meet him at the lot today. I look at the lot, I ask them some questions, then we go through what they want to do. Then I can spitball them a number, what I did there today. So like today they said 500,000. I said, well, your site work's going to be about 500,000 to do the 12,000 square foot of buildings. So it's going to be about $90 a foot based on, the description of the buildings that you're telling me. So, roughly 1.5 to 1.6. So then I can spitball a number. And typically when I do that, just because I have so much experience in doing this and budgeting stuff, I'll normally tell somebody, I can do this and I'll write you a plus or minus budgetary contract, plus or minus 10% of what I'm telling you, and then take them through the whole process. And as long as I can guide them help them on the design and keep them in line on the finishes, then I can put them, right in that ballpark. And so I have very good luck doing that. And so that helps a lot. I don't know if other contractors do that or how they work. A lot don't. I'll take somebody like just a scratch sheet of paper like that when we're looking at land, help them go through full entitlement, get them through the technical review committee at the town, and get through civil drawings, then get through the architectural and engineer drawings, and then do the construction and close them out and move them in.
What sorts of things, Tony, impact the price? What are the big ticket items where if a client comes to you and you start asking those questions to get an idea of pricing, what factors are going to significantly jack up the price, which could impact whether or not the client goes through with the project versus if that item is not present, it keeps the price down. What are the factors that really impact pricing?
Really, the factors that impact pricing are things that they can't control or you can't control. So that's why when I'm looking at things right now, those are the things that you're not thinking about are the things that are going to impact and make the deal not work. So, for instance, when we're looking at a piece of land and we go and we're like, I envision we want to do this, and the land looks good and it's just raw land, and then get it under contract and you go and do phase one, there's no problem. So then you go do a geotech study. And so let's say we do a geotech study. Nothing came up on a phase one, but we do a geotech study and we have unsuitable soil conditions. The soil doesn't drain, or the soil isn't compactable enough to put a building on. All of a sudden, I have to undercut 4 feet, backfill with gravel, and before we even start anything, we're $150,000 underwater. So those are the types of things that you've got to be careful of. Another thing, let's say, for instance, I had a client that was looking at a lot, and I had myself looking at a lot, and we had water, but sewer was across a 4-lane highway. So, I can ask you, what would you guess to tie into that sewer that was across the 4-lane highway would be? Just
What kind of distance? What kind of distance are we talking about?
70 feet.
Oh gosh, to tie into a sewer 70 feet, I'm gonna say 75 grand.
Right. $325,000. I have to undercut. It's an NCDOT roadway. I have to undercut. So it's extreme. You have to do it. It's extremely expensive whenever you're crossing a public right of way, especially a highway. So it's extremely expensive to core cut under that road. And there's a lot of things once you're touching and embarking in something that's a public right of way. Right. So that becomes extremely expensive. So I had a deal under contract, and just like you, I didn't think that. I was budgeting for myself 175, and then I got it under contract, and it was on the low, and I got quotes at 480,000. So which is the land I was purchasing was 300,000. So it's like, okay, well, this doesn't make any sense, right? So that's something that can come up that will change the whole deal. So something like that. Do I have sewer accessibility there? Not only do I have sewer accessibility, is there room, or is the sewer full? Is it a gravity sewer, or is it a force main? And so those have different costs associated with them. So all these things that you don't know, and then for the building, for instance, you're going to design a commercial building, and you're looking at the commercial building. What does this look like? Oh, this looks fantastic. But then we get to the architect has designed exactly what you like. Then we have to go to the structural engineer. Does the structural engineer care that we're trying to stay in a budget for the structural aspect of the building of 250,000 when he over engineers it to death because he has to stamp it and wants to keep himself safe? So then all of a sudden we're 200,000 over on structural design. Has nothing to do with you, me, or what the client wants. That's just what the structural engineer, in order to stamp it, that's what he's going to do. Then we've got the engineer doing the MEP. He's going to overdo the electrical, overdo the HVAC, and let's say we are having a client that wants to do a hair salon there. He's got an ERV system. He's got to bring fresh air in for this mechanical. And all of a sudden we budgeted for 60,000 for mechanical, and it's 280,000. So those are the kind of things. It's not really the finishes or what people mess up and select. It's just understanding when you're doing these buildings and budgets, the majority of the costs are things that you can't plan for, or the city that you're doing the work in, they're going to require a certain amount of landscaping and they're requiring this. And if you're tying into this road, what you have to do when I'm tying in to this road, is the NCDOT going to make me do a decel lane on there? Because that decel lane is going to require to meet all their specifications, and that's 250,000 I hadn't budgeted. I just assumed we were going to be able to patch in and turn in, right? Those are all the big things that can jump and really ruin something when you're doing a development deal for yourself. That's why when we go back to us starting small is always smart.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, I myself just got humbled. I mean, you asked me about running that sewer, and I've done some sewers. I have a ballpark idea about what it costs to redo sewer lines, and I was, you know, the actual price was 4x what I had guessed, and I even have some idea of what sewers cost. And so, man, I mean, I can only imagine it just takes one or two of these unknowns to come up that can totally just blow up your deal. So let's talk about you had also just mentioned that your phone's ringing off the hook before we even hit record. Your phone's ringing, and I know
Right.
you're getting messages and you're talking to clients. So you're busy, you are building, and people are calling you asking you stuff. So what types of people are wanting to develop right now? Are these owner operators that are in it for the long haul? Or are these investors that are finding some way to make numbers work? Who are you building for now?
Everyone. So I mean, we're doing multiple jobs for capital investment companies right now. So we work for capital investment companies. We're doing some restaurant developments for restaurateurs that are wanting to expand their restaurants. So franchise owners, we do franchise upfits, and then that person I just met today is just an owner that wants to. He's had land, they own it outright. They've been meaning to do flex buildings, and the flex market here is fantastic, and so it's already properly zoned. So it just needs somebody, and they've been sitting on it, couldn't find anybody, so we got referred through a friend. So to help them from start to finish. So then we're just going to help them through the whole process, to start to finish, and develop and build out the flex buildings for them. Then they'll just rent them out or sell them off, um, you know. And so we just like to become people's partners, and maybe we do a deal with them down the road later. So I always leave that open. So sometimes I tell people I can put my fee in the deal if they're looking to do it in the deal, or if they're looking for a partner or whatever we can help. Um, there's tons of different ways. Some people buy the land and they have the land and they're calling us to build it, then we're way over the budget, and then we help them kind of off the land. Where if you're not going to use the land, would you consider then selling it? A lot of people, if they don't want to move forward, then am I an easy avenue to get rid of the land for them? So we do everything and anything, and then we keep good relationships with commercial realtors, so they'll bring me deals. Um, you know, Either people wanting to build something or people walking away from something to see if I have somebody else that can put something together.
Is there, Tony, a pattern of what's working? Because if it's so easy to go over budget, yet people continue doing deals and you keep doing developments and building for people, I'm wondering if there's some sort of pattern for people that are having success in this space and making money. You had talked about, you alluded to a client wanted who wanted to build some flex space, and they already owned the land outright. You and I were in a meeting just last night where this developer was talking about how he would get land from cities for free or for very cheap. And so it seems like maybe getting a great deal on land is one avenue towards towards making numbers work. I'm wondering if it's better to do it at scale and do bigger buildings, and the bigger, it's easier to make money and make numbers work on bigger buildings. Um, can you explain any patterns that you see that help people be successful in making money on these deals?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's a great point you brought up. So in development, in field development or any development, there's a threshold. So if you're, let's say, wanting to um, do an infield development, if you're going in and wanting to build a standalone 5,000 square foot building, no matter what, if you're having to do the site work and do a 5,000 square foot building, you're going to be exorbitantly high just because it's not enough building to get the square foot price to make any sense. So typically, to do something, especially in this environment now, in an off environment, you could maybe make that work. Right now, you really can't make anything less than 10,000 square feet on a building infill development work numbers wise. That's where the numbers start to kind of level out, where you can get your building price and your site to make sense. So below that, it's very difficult. Um, when you're doing like a retail building, we look at. So we just priced one for a site work on a 10,000 square foot shell, and this just gets you to a cold dark shell, and then you give the tenant the TI allowance. Those were like $250 a foot to do the site work, and it was like a 10,500 square foot building, right? So that would give you an idea, and that's infill development where all your utilities are on site and you're tying in to a stormwater system that's on the property and stuff like that.
When you're talking about price per foot, does that include site work and
Yeah,
moving dirt and everything?
yeah, yeah. That would include
Okay.
work and moving dirt. So typically in those infill, the lot's already kind of cleared and your curbing is already there. It's just kind of like an out parcel in a larger, retail development. So it'll have like maybe an anchored retailer. So maybe this one was a Walmart shopping center, right? And it's just an out parcel in that Walmart shopping center. And so you've got a cleared piece of land with just grass on it and everything is surrounding you. You've got your curbing, so you're just doing your cut in on the curbing and you're just taking your storm water and doing it and tying it in. And so everything is right there. All your utilities are right there, brought to the site by the original developer when they were doing the master development.
All right. I want to talk about how easy it is getting things permitted and entitled. When you're doing this infill stuff, how involved are you in the permitting and entitlement process?
Depends on the client. So if it is a capital company like we're talking about, so if I'm dealing with capital investors, they're typically coming to me with a drawing completed. They've already gone through the full entitlement process and they're looking for bidding and someone to build it, right? And then you have developers that are going through maybe a portion of the entitlement process and want me to take them through the finish and then get to the build, but they'll have plans. Then you have others that are just, investors that want to buy, like you and me, but let's say just want to buy, the land and need to go through the whole process. So I will take them through the whole process, which means we'll get them, they'll have no drawings. I take them, we get a sketch. So the first step is to contact a civil engineer, lay out the site. That civil engineer can just do a sketch of the site. Then we can take that sketch of the site with a parking lot and he'll give us, this building size and where we can put the building and kind of do a quick layout of the site. Then we can take that to the city planner and show it to them and do what's called a technical review, a preliminary technical review, where they can look at it and see, does it make sense? Is this, zoned for what I'm trying to do? Does this fit in, and does this look, are there any major red flags at this point? So we can do all of that initial work, not a whole lot of money involved, and then we'll help them through that process. And let's say that works. Then we take it to the next step, get full civil drawings designed, and we can maybe start initial building design, and then take it through the full technical review process. That process can take 3 to 4 months. The civil design drawings right now could take 3 to 4 months. So you're going to have that initial, then you're going, after that initial preliminary review, then you have to get the civil engineer to do a full design. and then you kind of work on a building design once you understand the concept, and then you start your TRC process. To get through your full TRC process and entitlement, you're going to have a full set of building drawings and a full set of site drawings. Once all that's completed, and you're going to kind of go through the steps with the technical review committee and make sure you're staying on track and staying in contact with them the whole time, then you get that entitlement to do it and get approved to do the work. And then you're also doing the other things we were talking about, checking all the little things that could come and mess you up in the building process as you're going through development. So typically in stuff like this, it's a little different. So you don't want to buy that land because you don't know all these things and you're putting all this time and money. So typically in development deals, you're going to want to lock that property up under contract, however you can, with a small amount or no money down, and make sure you get through all that process. Once all that process is completed and you're approved to do what you want to do, then you can close on the property.
Are you finding that that municipalities and local jurisdictions are supportive of development, or do you find that cities and counties are throwing a bunch of arbitrary roadblocks in your way? What's been your interaction like with local governments?
Well, I only have experience with the areas that I'm working, but the areas that I'm working are very receptive. And there's typically, to back up a little bit, let's say, where you're going to run into challenges is if I'm trying to rezone a property. So if I've found some land that's residential land and I want to turn it to commercial land, okay? So I just found something that's currently just, already designated and zoned to be a home, and I've picked up 2 pieces of land and I want to, turn this and put a gas station. It's a corner lot, maybe it's got 2 retail lots. I want to turn it into a gas station. So then what I need to do typically is normally in every town, there's a couple people that are very involved with the city council and kind of know what gets done and what doesn't get done. So maybe you want to talk to some commercial agents around that area and reach out to them and say, here's a couple pieces of land I have under contract. Do you think I'd be able to rezone this to this? And can you help me get through the rezoning process? So that person, if they're very familiar with what's getting through and what isn't, they'll say yeah or no pretty quickly. If you don't have that, then you need to go talk to the city and kind of give them your idea and see if it's going to get shot down. And if they think that they would get behind it and they think it's a great idea and there's a need for it, then you know that you're onto something. If they say no, then it's pretty much dead. But let's say they say there's a good need for it, then you kind of pursue it to the next step. Then, there's going to be a hearing, and then the community around you can get involved and insight if they have an issue with it. So then all of a sudden, maybe the neighbors don't want it like that. So then the city's okay with it, but maybe this city council wants to put it out to the community and see what they think. So then all of a sudden, some person in the community, maybe the neighbor next door, doesn't want that. So then they can stop, and potentially that ruins your whole deal. So there's a lot of challenges, a lot more challenges, I should say, when you're going to rezone something than if you're taking it as it's already zoned. So typically you'll want a lot more money in those deals because they're a lot harder, and that'll turn something, we can take our timeline and add another, 8 to 12 months for that to get done in this market. Other market, maybe a 6 or 8 month.
Tony, you just touched on this a little bit with relationships. My question is, you can often spend, when you were talking about engineering and getting drawings and site plans and things, I know a developer can often spend 6 figures on a property, on a project, before a piece of dirt is even moved. That can deter some people from wanting to do development deals. Do you have any advice or thoughts on how to get a project going and how to sort of get the wheels turning on a project without sinking 5 and 6 figures into a project that is ultimately just going to fail?
Yeah, absolutely, Jonathan. I think that's a great point to bring up. So what I would recommend for anyone, not just because I'm a builder, but anyone who is in getting into development, wants to be in development, or you can talk to any existing developer. The main key to development and finding that lane and understanding what you're doing is have a great builder partner, right? And so, you have to understand a lot of people are, of the opinion that they want to go get everything designed and then I'm going to bid it out and find the lowest contractor, find the best deal. I'm really going to save money. That's the way I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it all on my own. I'm going to get these plans done. I'm going to have it all figured out. Then I'm going to go bid it out and I'm going to get the lowest contractor and save money. Terrible idea, especially in development. So the reason being is you partner up with a builder like me who understands all those hurdles we just discussed previously, right? I also, besides understanding all those hurdles, I understand what I need to do to work around those hurdles, how I can curb the costs to make those costs level out to where we can make the deal work. So if I'm involved from the beginning with someone, I work through the process with someone, I find the right engineer for doing the structural that's not going to over design it structurally, but is familiar with this area. I'm not getting someone 3 states away because he's going to get it done quicker. I'm using the plumbing, mechanical, and electrical engineer that I have a relationship with that knows I'm going to build it the proper way. So it's going to work with me and listen to my input on what we want to put everywhere and how we want to do everything and how we want to wire it and where we're doing this and what size we need for this, right? So when I have that input with the engineers and we have a team in place, then we can control the cost because they're comfortable that I'm not going to put them out to dry or create some legal battle with them that they're going to deal with in 2 years down the road. So they need to really protect themselves, right? So they have a comfort in working with me for 10 years that they're okay with my input and they trust what I'm going to do is right, that I'm not going to do any shortcuts or cut corners. And so when you have that relationship with those people, then me as a builder have the relationship with the building inspectors in town. They know that I build the quality stuff. Then when they're inspecting everything, everything's going to go smoother. So when you create that team up front, maybe my fee is 2% more than the next builder, but all the savings that I'm going to provide and all of that stress that I'm going to relieve for you makes that insignificant. So what I do is create that partnership with people. And so then they come back to me and they use me over and over and over again. And you, as a developer wanting to grow, you need that partnership. You want that partnership. You need to know. And then when you're looking at land, once we've done one or two, we work together. You bounce off. Here's this lot I'm looking at. Oh, that's not a good lot. The dirt there is really bad. I know this guy that built over there. I know this problem over there. It just gives you that partner to deal with. And, it's just a fee that you're paying me, but it creates that partnership as opposed to you trying to do it on your own and then bidding out all these builders and then everyone, oh, this guy's he's just bidding me. So I'll have other people that they're talking to me. They give me the full plans. They've gone through it. And I just know it's just the low man number. And I'll tell them, well, my number's not low, but they're not including all these different things. They're going to hit you with all these change orders. And a lot of times they'll do 1 or 2 deals and then they come back and say, man, you were right. Or they just don't ever do them again because they lost a bunch of money because they got through the ringer. So it's very important to find that team around you because that's what's going to make you successful as a developer is finding the proper team. So it's all about networking and talking to others in your area and get the proper team. And if you find the right team, you'll be successful regardless of what you do.
That was so good. My only experience with attempting to develop something, I had this old rundown house and that I bought at a low cost, and I was like, man, I could build it was a big lot. It's like, man, I could build a fourplex on this lot. So I did the exact thing that you said do not do. So I call like 10 different builders, just trying to say like, hey, if I've got like I want to build like a 4,000 square foot fourplex here. What's that going to cost? Can you just give me a ballpark number? And it's exactly what you said. They were like, that is it's so hard. I just can't, I couldn't get a number out of them. They said, if you want an actual number, you have to I need plans. Once I have plans, then I can give you a price per foot. And so then I went to an architect and I'm like, hey, this is what I want to do. What would some plans cost, or how would I go about this? And she quoted me, well, initial plans are going to be like 45 grand, and that does not include an engineering stamp. So then engineering will probably be another 15 grand. So then I'm like, oh man, I'm 60 grand into this before I even know how much it's going to build. And so that I obviously walked away from that because I was like, how can I possibly start developing something if I don't know how much it's going to cost? And so you answered it. I partner with someone who does know all of those things, who can give me a price per foot just by looking at the lot, and somebody that knows more than me. That is how stuff gets done.
Right, but the key is like you were just saying, don't just call around and tell everybody what you want to do. Say, here's I've found a lot. I want to build a 4,000 square foot building. Can we sit down and go over it and you guide me? Can we meet at the lot and look at it? Do you have time? So, and a lot of people won't have time. A lot of people won't have interest. They'll say, just get me the plans. Those are the people that you don't want to deal with, right? So you know that. But once you find someone, make sure that they're familiar with commercial, not like just someone that builds houses. That's going to put you in the wrong direction because it's all different subs. So anything that you're doing with this stuff, you've got to make sure that this person has knowledge in what they're doing. The other big thing that gets people in a lot of trouble in this environment is they'll get a residential person to do commercial construction, which is terrible idea. They're going to have all the wrong trades. Nobody knows what they're doing. They don't want to work on top of each other. They want a house to themselves because they're used to all the different things that are associated with residential construction. So residential construction goes at about a quarter the pace of commercial construction. And residential subcontractors typically don't have the financial backing to have the proper staff to understand what they're doing, and they don't have the relative experience. So, you know, commercial subcontractors are completely different than residential subcontractors. Most all of them, even if they're an owner operator, like there are a lot in residential, they have been around for 30, 40 years. They're normally like my plumber, for instance. It's a father and son plumber that do a lot of stuff. I mean, they do a lot of plumbing work between two and they have a helper. But they're a third generation plumber and they've been plumbing their whole entire lives, right? So they're not just getting me a plumber and throwing me a subcontractor that doesn't know what they're doing and even subbing it out, or hiring somebody that's, doing plumbing for the third week. And these guys have been doing it their whole lives. They know everything of what they're doing. That's a good commercial subcontractor. That's in residential houses, you'll have people that don't ever know what they're doing. They've been working for 3 weeks. They screw stuff up left and right. You get somebody on a commercial job, and it's not a small house that you're messing with a $2 million, $3 million project, and you can cause yourself so much liability, so many issues. Your time frame is going to go all out of whack. Just you get one or two subs like that, it'll ruin your whole life. And if you have a builder that's all he can source or all he has relationships with, then you're in big trouble.
Tony, the last topic I want to touch on is your team and building a team and working with subs. The most amount of experience I have in this area is flipping houses, and what prevented me from scaling my house flipping business was labor. So the struggle I had was, do I hire in house and do I have these contractors work for me? And do I have teams out at different houses, or do I sub everything out and just sort of be at the whims of people's schedules? And, maybe I GC stuff, or maybe I hire a GC. And I was never able to get over that hurdle because I didn't want to hire people and then run out of deals and then have to lay people off. That would be awful. And so there was just this constant tension of the labor versus the work. So can you talk to me about your team and how you handle matching up the workers with the amount of work that you have?
Yeah, no, that is a balancing act. And as I've grown, I've kind of grown with that. So we've tried it multiple ways. And like you say, so, in first, in relation to what you're saying for flipping houses, that's extremely difficult because typically flipping houses, you want to go in and get a house and do $30,000 worth of work that probably realistically should cost 60. And so you're trying to figure out how to get all this done for cheap. Nobody wants to do it. So you're trying to find any Joe Schmo that can do it. And it's very difficult. So I commend you for trying that, or anybody for trying that, because, people call me, I won't even talk to them about those. It just doesn't work. It's never worked my whole career ever since I've started. Those have never worked for me. So yeah, I commend you for trying that. But how it works for me typically, so we've gone, when we're slow, I should say, on a side note, I also have a paint and drywall division with my company. And so with that division, I have around 70 contract laborers that I keep busy 24/7. And so we started out, as I mentioned very early on in our conversation, that the first thing I ever did painting wise was I started painting at the UNC Wilmington, and we did some dorm painting. So I did just a little bit of painting there to all of a sudden I was painting 300 dorms, and we had to get them done in 2 weeks. So I had 300 dorms to get done in 2 weeks. So I found a guy who brought me a couple painters, and then we didn't have enough. Then we had other painters. Then we were working 24 hours a day with the painters. I was even in there painting, trying to get painting done because there was so much painting and we were on such a tight time frame getting it done. But we got it all done in the time frame. And then when we were done, those painters were like, "What do you have next? What's next? What's next?" I was like, "What do you mean what's next? I don't know what's next. It's the first painting job I ever got over here, this big, huge job. I thought we were done for a year, But they're like, "What's next? What's next?" I was like, "I don't know. Let me see what I can find next." So then I'm like, go back. What is there anything else you can do? Who else needs some painting? So, then we got a couple more contracts. And the initial person that brought me, the guy, he didn't paint, but he brought me his sister's husband was a Hispanic painter. And so he was the best painter. He worked harder than anybody I've ever seen in my life. And he managed the crew of like 12 people. And he was painting and running all around. The guy worked, it was 7 days a week, 13 hours a day. I don't think he ever stopped to eat or anything. This guy just worked. So to this day, that guy still works for me. So and then he introduced me to another person, and he introduced me to another person. Then they introduced me to another person. And then I built into doing drywall with the painting. And then to keep them busy, then I started doing residential houses. Now we do upwards of 650 houses a year. And so we have a whole division that does that. And we have warranty guys and a big group that does that. And then I have my W-2 team manages all of them. And, then we help get them all their paperwork. But we do exactly what you said. We keep them busy. So our job is to sign up new builders. So when one builder starts slowing and they're not building houses, we pick up a new builder and fill them in to make sure I'm giving these guys the amount of houses they need every week. Now, I'm not involved in that much anymore. I have another guy that runs it for me. But, that for that part of my company, that's how that works. And then we constantly keep them busy. And then they stay around and don't go work on other people's jobs because we keep them busy all the time. As far as my commercial division in the building, a lot of my guys came from, I had a guy that owned a tile company that came and worked for me. So when we need some tile done, he would do some tile. I had another guy that was a welder that came to work for me. So then we did that. I had another guy that, built cabinets. So we put a little cabinet shop in the back and build cabinets and build millwork. If they slow down and they have nothing to do for a day or two, they'll do some millwork or they can do some punch work. So that was my strategy initially, but then we got so busy and we were wasting time doing that I said, nope, nix that. We need to spend all our time on management. So it's tricky though, because going back to your initial question, when you're doing the smaller projects, you can't find the people to do those little things. So then you need to be able to do it in-house. So as you scale to the larger projects, then you can manage and get the full subcontractors. So it's it's kind of, you have to build up and grow with it and be able to be versatile as you're growing in order to properly grow, I would say.
Tony, this has been amazing. I could talk to you for another hour or two. I don't think I got through even half the questions that I had. So we'll definitely have to do this again sometime.
Sure.
If listeners hear this and they want to connect with you, they want to talk development, where would you like to send people to reach you?
They can always call me. My phone number is 910-550-6359. Best is to text, better than call. Or you can check us out, Timeless Properties Construction Company, or Tony Johnson on LinkedIn. We're on Facebook, Instagram, or Timeless Capital Investments, on the internet or on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram. We're on all of them, and they can reach out to me through any of them, through any of the platforms, and we'd be happy to talk to them or help anybody in any way. If they're, in my area, not in my area, have a question, anything I can help with, I'm happy to help anybody.
Tony, this has been great. I sincerely appreciate you sharing your wisdom and expertise with us today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me, Jonathan. I appreciate it.
Listeners, if you enjoyed this conversation, don't hesitate to reach out to either one of us. We would love to chat about commercial real estate with you. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, take care.